Now, hate is a strong word. I'm sure some of these fall under the remit of intense dislike or a serious disagreement, or don't get along on any level, or did hate John Cena but have since learned to get over it, but YouTube likes snappy titles. Anyway, here's the list. And the first entrant is everybody, apparently. In an interview with Chris Van Vliet, John Cena said that during the initial phase of his hip-hop Doctor of Thugonomics character, he would work very hard on writing down amusing raps with good punchlines. For whatever reason, most of the veterans on the WWE SmackDown roster at the time saw this as an act of either disrespect or arrogance or laziness, because they had no idea why he was sat on his own up in the bleachers for hours on end before shows. Here's Cena to explain.
The way I started with this was when I was writing my own raps. Nobody can write that stuff because at the time it was an art form that wasn't showcased on the program.
Yeah.
And the writers weren't versed in that art form. So it was on my shoulders to sink or swim. And I would spend hours in the bleachers just writing punchlines. And I became ostracized and hated by my coworkers because they thought I didn't care about the business because I wasn't around the ring with my shoulders on the canvas going, okay, who's in the ring? I'm around the product. Little did they know that I was investing everything I had into trying to develop a connection with the audience, which I believe is the most important thing.
Sure.
On October 1st, 2007 episode of WWE Raw, Kennedy and John Cena kicked off a match with a hip toss that went slightly wrong. Kennedy kind of didn't get all the way over and Cena's body hit the mat in an unusual manner, and in the process, Cena tore his pectoral muscle. Cena had to give up his WWE Championship and then perform an absolute miracle to return to action in less than 3 months rather than the expected 8 to 9 months for the injury. Cena blamed Ken. A couple of years later, Mr. Kennedy's first match after recovering from a serious injury of his own took part in a multi-man match with a little goatee and something to prove. Unfortunately, Mr. K hit Orton with a textbook belly-to-back suplex. Absolutely nothing wrong with it from an execution standpoint, but Orton reacted to the move like he'd accidentally trod in dog shit on the way to a wedding. Orton complained to management, i.e. Vince McMahon, and convinced John Cena to do the same. Vince heard enough, and Kennedy was given his walking papers and released from the company. While Kennedy, under his real name Ken Anderson, did well in TNA, it didn't compare to being at The Show, and he genuinely hated Cena and Orton for years, for costing him his WWE career. In more recent times, however, Kennedy expressed a desire to talk with them both and has since claimed he holds no bitterness towards them while holding his hands up to creating a situation where he was expendable as a WWE talent. Wade Barrett addressed his feelings regarding John Cena back in 2014. Cena has been the face for 10 years and he's really good at what he does, but everyone knows that I don't like John Cena and he doesn't like me either. Personally, I don't like him and he doesn't like me. We are not friends. So it's a high-profile feud on screen and also over the years behind the scenes. As the leader of the Nexus, a group formed from the competitors of the first season of the original NXT game show format, Preston Lancashire's own Wade Barrett looked to be positioned as the next true main event star to crash through that glass ceiling. He was the leader of the hottest faction to hit WWE in years. John Cena apparently felt that as well, and what should have been Wade's breakthrough performance at SummerSlam 2010 ended up killing Barrett and the Nexus push to the point that the group as a serious threat was done. The match was a 40-man elimination tag for the SummerSlam main event, the WWE versus the Nexus. The original plan was for the Nexus to win and for Wade to get his hand raised after defeating Cena. That didn't happen. And according to Cena's teammates Edge and Chris Jericho, that was down to Cena. Cena insisted that he take a DDT on the concrete before hulking up and winning the match anyway. Everybody with authority told Cena that it was a horrible idea to win the match from a 2-1 disadvantage, but the Nexus were rookies and they didn't want to speak up. Vince McMahon explained it to Wade himself thusly: "The reason we are doing this is because SummerSlam has to have a happy ending. I want kids to go home happy, pal." However, it was felt by everyone else involved that Cena was ultimately the one to change Vince's mind in the finish. And also, what was Vince even on about? Because heels won all the time in the main events of major shows. I mean, for goodness sake, Triple H was his son-in-law. Did he forget? Wade Barrett's career then went in fits and starts having good years and then some bad years according to his creative. But oh, what could have been if Cena had decided to do business. More members of the Nexus back up Wade Barrett's opinion of Cena, as well as his handling of the Nexus angle. David Otunga, for example, is absolutely of the opinion that Cena buried the Nexus group. Quote, "I don't know why he wanted to go over, but we knew all day we were supposed to go over, and then things started getting weird, and then they tell us no, the finish changed, and it's because John wanted to go over, and we weren't happy about that." But that was the least of it, because John Cena, the so-called leader of the WWE Raw locker room, wouldn't let Otunga dress in the locker room with the rest of the guys because he left his bag somewhere he apparently shouldn't have done. As David rightly pointed out, Cena didn't even change with everybody else, he had his own tour bus. But even worse, Otunga botched a spot with Cena while they were wrestling in Paris in 2010, and Cena started hitting the Harvard graduate for real during the match, before making a point of dressing down and humiliating Otunga in front of everybody. Cena even threatened to call Vince McMahon and have Otunga removed from the main roster. Cena also knew when to pick his battles, with Otunga claiming he would have beat the dog shit out of him if he'd have tried to get physical outside of the ring. More pointless bullying and weird ribs saw Otunga briefly win and then lose the WWE Tag Team titles, and the entire experience saw David have numerous unflattering things to say about the Doctor of Thugonomics in the decades that followed. And Ryback backed up Otunga's beliefs in regards to Cena holding down the Nexus group. The Nexus were not used properly, mainly because of John Cena, and it's a fact across the board. Everybody knows it, and he did not want the group to go any further than what it was going to go past because it was working. Because it was 8 guys getting over naturally. That's why. God forbid guys get over naturally. By the way, Ryback doesn't like Cena personally either, even claiming that Triple H might have come up with the NXT developmental system just to stop having Cena interact with and bury all the up-and-comers. Michael Tarver felt he was specifically targeted by Cena backstage in a bullying manner, despite not wanting to call it bullying because he doesn't want to be portrayed as a victim. Tarver had promised to a degree, like everybody else in the Nexus did. Everyone was telling him backstage that he had all the serious potential in the world, all except one. The man who leads the C Nation, John Cena. Basically, he felt that John treated him like crap for no apparent reason, including refusing to shake his hand. Now, if you know anything about pro wrestling, you'll know that you have to go around shaking everybody's hand morning, noon and night, lest you get heat with anybody for not doing so. But this is John Cena we're dealing with, and he was figured in with the WWE office, so apparently he could get away with just about anything. But the real issue was that John Cena was attacking members of the Nexus with a chair during the segment. Tarver said that Cena was taking liberties with just how hard he was throwing said steel seating device, and come the second chair shot to Tarver, he got his arm up to protect himself. Michael suffered a fractured elbow for his trouble. That was one thing, but the real issue was Cena's reaction. Tarver was furious in the back, but by the time Cena was walking past, he had managed to calm down somewhat. Tarver offered him a handshake to thank John for the segment, but Cena refused to shake his hand. Then he took 2 steps, turned around, and then laughed at him and asked, "How's the arm?" Quote from Tarver, "At that point I wanted to kill him. I was so angry." Even though Michael Tarver would say that John Cena is not a nice person in subsequent interviews, he said he no longer hates the guy. But in all honesty, Tarver never got back to the WWE main roster and was fired months later. So even if he did still hate John for intentionally swinging for the fences and inadvertently costing him his career and allegedly bullying him behind the scenes, who could blame Michael Tarver for holding on to that animosity? Freddie Prinze Jr, yes, the actor Freddie Prinze Jr, for those who don't know, was part of WWE's creative team between 2008 and 2012. This one's a bit more of a, boy, John Cena's a bit of a knob sock than pure hatred, but it's still a weird incident nonetheless. Freddie Prinze Jr was running an acting workshop with Matt Cardona and Brian Myers, where they were reenacting a scene from Bad Boys. John Cena strolls in, pulls up a chair right between Cardona and Myers, sits down, and then ruins the entire class. Prinze Jr and Cena went outside to talk about what was happening, with Cena saying, and keep in mind that John Cena is now a professional actor, "Look, maybe I'm a Neanderthal, but I just don't see how any of this shit works." Prince responded with, "Hey man, not everybody can do what you do. I'm just trying to get them to a level where you're at, or close to it, because if I don't, who the hell is?" Cena then shrugged his shoulders before leaving by saying, "Hey man, it's not like you're helping them out there." John Cena would also refer to Freddie as Ashton Kutcher to wind him up, because at this point, why not? JTG. Now, before Jey Uso was bouncing around in sunglasses with writing on them, we have the originator of said fashion accessory in WWE, JTG, no doubt inspired by Randy Savage's Madness shades in WCW. During an interview for WWE Magazine in 2008, JTG was talking about whatever, it doesn't matter, and then he slipped in the words loyalty and respect kind of close to each other. Now, this was rather too close to John Cena's catchphrase, hustle, loyalty and respect, and JTG knew this. JTG asked the WWE Magazine writer to edit it out, and the writer just didn't do that. John Cena got wind of this, and at Survivor Series 2008, things came to a head. At this point, JTG was wearing sunglasses with Yo 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 written on them, and as part of the act, he was giving the sunglasses to a kid at ringside a la Bret Hart back in day. Well, Cena corners JTG in the arena toilets just before the show, and proceeds to talk to JTG like a dead-eyed lunatic. Cena said that he knew JTG was probably screwed over by the magazine writer, but it was to be JTG himself that needed to make amends. Amends for what? I mean, replying to a question with some words apparently. 2/3 of them happened to be something that John Cena said and that relatively few WWE viewers would have read? Well, how could that have possibly hurt Cena one bit, I ask you? I'm sure you'll all agree, a properly twatty move. When reading this information out loud, it's clearly an ultimatum, or at least it comes off that way. Either give up this merch deal as penance, or you'll find yourself out the door. JTG did indeed lose the glasses, and he ended up having the 2010s equivalent career of Barry Horowitz. When JTG was used, and that's if he was used, it was losing on the B shows. Still, he somehow squeaked out another 6 years worth of WWE paychecks, and it got to the point that it became a yearly joke that when WWE would release swathes of talent and JTG wasn't on the list, it was most likely because the company literally forgot he worked there. But reasons for John Cena acting out against talent are about to get even more petty. Tyler Reks is one of those names that you just don't hear much about, especially as he transitioned to a she a few years ago with a name changed to GabbiTuft. But Reks at the time had a serious issue with John Cena when, during a house show, Cena felt that Tyler was ripping off his FU finisher, or attitude adjustment finisher, whichever one you want to call it. Reks and Eddie Colon were wrestling on a Raw brand house show, and Reks was going to drop him with a burning hammer. Now, hopefully the B-roll over my words will visually explain what that's supposed to look like, hint hint. Whatever happened during this match, Eddie didn't take the move right, and he ended up landing on his back instead of taking what is essentially a moonsault and landing on his belly. This apparently was too close for Cena's liking to his own finishing move, and Reks himself knew it. Keep in mind that in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Raw brand politics were pretty vicious, and if you don't believe me, go and watch the Mr. Kennedy entry again. Reks had been using the burning hammer for many months prior, and he had full approval from the office. But when he got to the back, John Cena, seemingly joking, told Reks to find a new finisher, and then Reks apologised. But apparently John was serious, as evidenced by the interaction Cena and Reks had the following night, when Tyler landed another burning hammer. Quote, "John grabs me in front of everyone and says, 'What do you think you're doing? I thought I told you to get a new finisher.' I said, 'Yeah, I thought you were joking, John. We hit it wrong last night. I'm really sorry.'" And quote, once again, Cena started yelling at me, asking who gave me permission to use that. He belittled me, called me an idiot, and asked me if I enjoyed working there. I told him of course I do. He told me, "Find another finisher or you're fired." I was humiliated. Now, Reks agreed to find another finisher and never really spoke to Cena for the rest of his time in the company. This is particularly annoying because the burning hammer did look cooler than John Cena's phony baloney looking attitude adjustment or FU or whatever you want to call it. But if you think John had a hand in killing off Tyler Reks' career, that's nothing compared to what John allegedly did to Alex Riley. Now, Alex Riley may be the most well-known example of John Cena negatively affecting another pro wrestler's career for no glaringly obvious reason. Quote, "I think it came down to, at the end, two men just not liking each other. As sad as that is, it had an impact on my career because he is who he is. I just happened to be in a situation where, right from the start, it was just, he didn't like me." Riley was hanging around with The Miz in the early 2010s, including being a part of the main event for WrestleMania 27 when The Miz took on John Cena for the WWE Championship. Alex Riley was going places. Unfortunately, that place was the unemployment line though after Cena was done with him. Riley was a handsome guy, good size, good body, he had potential, and best of all, John Cena really liked the guy, initially. So what went so wrong? Well, weirdly, nobody quite seems to know for sure, as Alex Riley has never actually admitted anything publicly, but there were a couple of hints floating around out in the ether. The most common cause was that Riley screwed up his own elimination in the 2011 Royal Rumble match. Cena and Kofi Kingston were trying to throw Alex Riley out on the top right corner, and it appeared that when dumped onto the apron, Riley couldn't grab the top rope and he fell right onto the floor. Cena even forgot himself and tried to rescue him. Now, this elimination was not supposed to happen, at least at that time. The commentators didn't even make mention of it. In the aftermath, Cena sat in the corner chatting with referee Mickie for ages, it seemed, trying to come up with an ad-lib. And then when Cena was eliminated from the match, he went over to commentator Michael Cole and said, "Your boy, he's done." Now, the heel Michael Cole and The Miz were aligned at the time, but was the "you're done" line directed toward The Miz, or was it directed towards Alex Riley? Soon after WrestleMania, Alex was reduced from main event player to curtain jerker before he was drafted without The Miz to SmackDown. From there, Riley had about 5 years of living on an Isle of Solitude. He worked a lot of house shows and B shows like Superstars and Dark matches, but Riley's push was basically forgotten about. His last match before being let go in 2016 was wrestling in WWE's development territory, NXT, as well as doing commentary. But then Ryback had an alternative theory. You remember how I said at the beginning that John Cena actually liked Alex? Well, Ryback claimed to have travelled with Alex Riley and got the inside track. Initially, when Riley got to the main roster, John Cena liked him so much that he used to invite him onto his private tour bus to drink and drink and drink some more. After about a week, Alex was done. He couldn't drink that much. He was missing workouts, and he told Cena that although he appreciated the personal time, he was done with the drinking. After being rebuffed, once again according to Ryback, Cena would then sit by the monitors and trash Alex Riley's performances loud enough for everybody to hear. Ryback then strongly hinted that Cena might have actually had a crush on Alex Riley. Once again, that is Ryback hinting at that, but he did also follow up with the term abuse of power, which is absolutely what Alex Riley seemed to fall victim to. Maven Huffman also said that while having dinner with Riley years later, his jaw hit the floor when he heard the real details, but once again, it's Alex's story to tell. Jack Swagger said that when he won Money in the Bank in 2010, John Cena point blank refused to put him over. So instead, on television, what we saw was Swagger teasing cashing in on Cena after attacking him on WWE Raw, but decided John was not incapacitated enough and then left ringside. Regarding Cena's refusal to do business, Jack later said, "I had a little inclination, but I had no idea what was going to happen. The night before, I teased it on Raw. I hit Cena with the briefcase, I snuck up on him when he had one of his brilliant promo segments, and then later came to find out he refused to do the job for me for the WWE Championship. The most unselfish top man in the business." Swagger did actually win Chris Jericho's version of the world title on the subsequent episode of WWE SmackDown with a successful cash-in, and thus moved over to the Blue brand as a result. Now, it can be argued that Cena needed to protect himself rather than lose to every Tom, Dick and Harry who challenged him, and there was a huge influx of new talent around that time coming into WWE. Although Swagger did decently in WWE's version of ECW, it was felt by various commentators that Swagger wasn't ready for a world title run in 2010. In fact, it would be several more years before Swagger peaked in WWE when he teamed up with Zeb Coulter and ran with the pro-American We the People shtick. Chris Masters, another wrestler that was fixed to most likely beat John Cena, or if not, at least get a lengthy feud with him around 2005 to 2006. Quote, "I know WWE were considering Cena and me for an angle. Probably looking back, if anything, I think Cena might have shot that down. I don't think Cena was too happy working with me around that time. I could have good matches with Shawn Michaels, but I felt Cena thought he had to lead me. I think the lack of experience was the big thing." Masters also felt that his comparative aloofness may have been a factor in him not having more of a chance to work with Cena. Quote, at that point he had a better work ethic than me, so I think he looked down on when he looked at me and didn't see the same work ethic. When you're young and dumb, sometimes you don't approach things the best possible way. Still, unlike some other people on this list, Masters said he didn't hate John Cena, which kind of disqualifies him from this list to be honest, but they were simply different people coming from different places. Chavo Guerrero Jr., for whatever reason, the reason apparently is that he thinks John Cena sucks, but the actual reason comes off as pure jealousy when you read the quotes. Chavo Guerrero Jr. has made numerous social media posts and done many interviews burying John Cena. In a wildly misspelled tweet, Chavo lamented back in 2011, quote, if Cena breaks the great Ric Flair's 16-time champ record, I will never watch wrestling again. I call a boycott of Cena matches if he does. How many of you are tired of John Cena being champion? Cena is better than me on the mic, but I could out-wrestle Cena with my eyes closed and one hand tied behind my back. Truth. And then he goes on and on and on, but some of the reasons for brevity and other reasons for YouTube reasons, I've cut those out. Anyway, in later years, Chavo said that other wrestlers made John Cena look good, and that Cena was a lazy wrestler who was a great promo guy, but a shitty match guy, which if nothing else, is insulting to actual great promo guys. While criticising Cena, Chavo also made it his mission to criticise WWE at the same time, which goes some way to explaining why he never returned to the company. Well, John Cena did indeed break Ric Flair's fake world title win number when he hit 17 at WrestleMania 41, but as we've established on this channel, Flair's real title tally is 23, so who cares? But apparently Chavo then went back on his word last year when he tweeted out that Cena was the man, quote, praising his work ethic and attitude and generosity, and saying he had much respect for him. Okay. Ken Doane, tipped to be the breakout star of the Spirit Squad. Quite frankly, how anybody broke out of that death knell gimmick with their head held high is incredible. Ken Doane, aka Kenny Dykstra, was seen as the teenage prodigy who would make a serious impact in WWE in years to come. Well, that didn't happen. After the Spirit Squad was split up, all was shipped back to the then developmental territory OVW, quite literally in their case. Specifically, Shawn Michaels and D-Generation X had beaten them into powder. They needed to go away, learn a new hold, come back with a fresh character, and hopefully get rid of the Spirit Squad stink that WWE had squirted all over them. That was all except for Kenny Dykstra. Now wearing 2002 era John Cena short shorts, he started picking up wins over Ric Flair. Behind the scenes, the hotly tipped star of the future and the women's wrestling star Mickie James were dating. In 2012, apparently during a Twitter meltdown, Kenny started spilling the tea that while James and Doane were an item, Mickie and John Cena were also an item. And that had dire consequences for everyone involved. Except for John Cena, of course. Kenny soon found out, then soon found himself drafted from Raw, where all three were performing, to SmackDown, and demoted to the opening matches, while Mickie and Cena remained on the Raw brand alone. Mickie and Cena carried on dating after Kenny was excommunicated to the Blue brand, even having their real-life romance blossom on screen for a short while. That was until shortly before Cena married his high school sweetheart. After being rejected, the devastated Mickie James was then not so coincidentally also sent to SmackDown and forced to be a part of a demeaning storyline with Michelle McCool and Layla where they made fun of her weight, despite her not being fat. WWE then fired her in 2010. But as for Kenny, well, he was fired in 2008 after being left to languish on a SmackDown brand that clearly had no plans for him other than to keep him out of Cena's way. Mickie would return to the WWE in 2016 and work on SmackDown at the same time as John Cena, and would even wrestle Cena's then partner, Nikki Bella. We're all adults, Mickie said in 2016. We've all had our share of relationships fail. I think that being adults and being professionals, I'm sure that I'm going to have to work with Nikki in the ring, and I know that we could do something really amazing. The Rock was, in 2008, simply known as Dwayne Johnson thanks to pressure from his management and agents to divorce himself from his previous vocation as much as possible. Johnson wanted to be treated as a serious actor, damn it, and everything that made The Rock the most electrifying man in sports entertainment went by the wayside. John Cena didn't appreciate this and queried, well, if Dwayne loved the wrestling business so much as he claimed, why did he never turn up to Raw or WrestleMania anymore? Why couldn't he make the time for the wrestling fans? Well, aside from the fact that too many people were in Dwayne's ear telling him to steer clear of WWE, Vince McMahon and co. 3 years earlier had cut his WWE contract and not even bothered to tell him about it. Someone in WWE was jealous, and Dwayne was clearly angry. In 2011, Dwayne changed agencies, and then he started billing himself as The Rock again, contacted WWE for a return, and got back on the weights. And if you don't believe me, just watch Fast and Furious 5. Then in the build-up to WrestleMania 27 and all the way to WrestleMania 28, The Rock and John Cena started cutting promos on each other. Rock's first return promo regarding Cena dressing like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles was not only hilarious, but it netted a deal for Cena to be the box cover star for the cereal. Cena then reiterated in promos that Rock claimed he loved WWE fans, but was never around when the company needed him most, a standpoint he believed in real life. The back and forth went on throughout the year and was the best thing on television, but the truth of the matter was that The Rock was genuinely offended that John Cena would question his loyalty to the wrestling business. It would take until after they actually finally wrestled over a year later for John Cena to apologise to him. And when Cena started drifting away from wrestling and getting into acting more and more, he finally understood The Rock's motivations a little more. While they did not like each other initially, they did in fact patch things up and then work together several more times throughout the years. And that is the end of the list, but before we end, I want to give a couple of guys who don't hate John Cena, but for whatever reason people think they do. So Dave Bautista. Now, that might be because he thinks John Cena's acting sucks, but he didn't say anything about John Cena the person. This one's a bit of a misnomer because Dave Bautista never actually said he didn't like John Cena, he just had no desire to appear in a movie with John Cena. Now, I don't know if that's because he thinks just John Cena's a bad actor, or if because Bautista's trying to be a serious actor, but in fairness, he also said he wouldn't appear in a movie with The Rock either, so maybe it's just a bodybuilder thing. And then there's CM Punk. Once again, you'll see the name CM Punk on lists of wrestlers who hate John Cena, but CM Punk never actually said he hated John Cena, the person. He always hated John Cena, the character. Now, Freddie Prinze Jr. once again explained the distinction. Punk hated John Cena, said Prinze, but not hated him, but hated what he represented, and that's what the company was behind. I remember one time Hunter saying, as different as they are, the reason he hates John so much is because he knows if he was in the same spot, he would act the exact same way. Like the Rock feud, sometimes a little real-life animosity spices up the storyline violence on television as well. In this case, it made what was simply the next guy in line for a title shot into the biggest story of the year. And that is the end of the video. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, share the good word of ListMania Wrestling, and we will see you soon for the next video.